a new era in which there will be prosperity for the people together with liberty for the people.
The question is, why are we supporting El Salvador?
No, the question was, why are we killing priests in El Salvador?
The answer is we're not. Now you be quiet. President Cristiani is trying to do a job for democracy, and the left-wing guerrillas must not take over El Salvador.
America will not impose our own style of government on the unwilling. Our goal instead is to help others find their own voice, attain their own freedom, and make their own way.
This film is about the struggle of people to free themselves from a modern form of slavery. Richard Nixon, President of the United States, once said of Latin America, "People don't give a shit about the place." He was wrong. The grand design of the United States as a modern empire was drawn on the hopes of an entire continent known contemptuously as the backyard. The extraordinary witnesses in this film describe a world not as American presidents like to see it, as useful or expendable. They describe the power of courage and humanity among people with next to nothing. They reclaim noble words like democracy, freedom, liberation, justice, and in doing so, they are defending the most basic human rights of all of us in a war being waged against all of us. This is Caracas, capital of Venezuela, one of the richest countries in Latin America, thanks to huge deposits of oil. The rich in Venezuela live in leafy suburbs with names like Country Club. Their spiritual homes are Miami and Washington. The majority live in what are known as barrios, on hillsides in breeze block houses that defy gravity. In the past, these people have been invisible, excluded from their own society. Today, they display the confidence of those who know an extraordinary change has come to their lives. This is Hugo Chavez, president of Venezuela, the voice of the barrios. Chavez and his supporters have won 10 elections in 8 years. He's the symbol of an awakening of people power, driven by great popular movements that are unique to Latin America.
Se acabó el caciquismo de aquellos caudillos adeptos, esa falsa democracia de las élites en Venezuela se acabó.
It's no surprise that Chavez, with the help of an aggressive media coverage, has become a hate figure in the United States. Because what he represents is another way, and a threat to American domination.
All right, now, Hugo Chavez, the criminal, speaking of criminal, government of Venezuela, offering...
The criminal?
The criminal, it's a criminal government.
In my opinion, in the opinion of a lot of people in our government, Hugo Chavez represents an extreme threat, not only to our nation, but to our hemisphere.
He should have been killed a long time ago. By whom? And anyone who believes other... By anyone.
Hay café por ahí.
Absolutely.
Do you want a cup of coffee?
Yes, yes.
Era una de mis lecciones de inglés de secundaria. Do you want a cup of coffee? Do you want a glass of milk? Do you want a glass of water? English lesson 1.
Let me ask about you personally. I mean, traveling with you for the last couple of days, I've seen a man who is clearly deeply committed to what you want for the Venezuelan people. Could you describe where that came from?
Yo nací en un hogar muy pobre, de campesinos, ¿no? Y me tocó vivir la pobreza. Yo fui un niño pobre, de pie descalzo. Mi padre maestro de escuelas rurales, mi madre también. Una abuela hermosa, india, que me llenó de amor. Mi abuela me enseñó mucho y aprendí de ella la solidaridad con los demás, el compartir el pan, aun cuando poco con el otro. Entonces me fui al ejército, a la academia militar, me hice soldado y ahí me conseguí con Bolívar. Empecé a dar cuenta de la verdad.
Simon Bolivar is venerated in Latin America as the liberator from Spanish colonialism. Bolivar believed that freedom only came when people united against all invaders, no matter their disguise. Today, the people of Latin America are again rising up against an empire built on an extreme form of capitalism known as the Washington Consensus. Whole countries have been privatized, put up for sale, their natural wealth sold to foreign companies for peanuts. In Venezuela, they've said, no more. This is La Vega, a barrio of 1 million people. Mariela Machado has lived here most of her life. She knows what it's like to be excluded in her own country.
Mira, yo tengo un hecho muy concreto. En los mapas, todos estos cerros, las casas que tienen allí, aparecían áreas verdes. Así aparecíamos áreas verdes antes del gobierno de Chávez. Antes del gobierno de Chávez no nos sentíamos incluidos en la sociedad.
This is called a mission. It's a kind of parallel government designed to bypass the old bureaucracy and deliver real benefits to ordinary people. This is raw democracy, a triumph of the grassroots. Today they're discussing the dream of owning their own homes for the first time.
Nosotros no queremos título por tener título. Uno de los objetivos de ser propiedad de la tierra, más que el título, es tener la propiedad para urbanizar, para tener los mismos derechos que por muchos años hemos sido negados. Eso es lo más importante. Si nosotros, de que el que reciba el título, no, ya yo estoy listo y me voy, y no venga a la asamblea parroquial, porque después del título hay otras cosas mejores, es la urbanización de nuestros barrios.
Soon after Chavez was elected in 1999, Venezuelans voted on a constitution, and this little blue book has become a bestseller ever since. This is one of a chain of supermarkets set up in the barrios, funded by the proceeds of oil. Here, prices are kept low, and on the back of every rice and soap powder packet are printed people's rights under the Constitution. Does it really mean something to you to see it there?
No, claro, porque yo no sabía lo de que teníamos derechos como cualquier otro, pero Y en este que nos habla en el artículo número 23, ¿verdad? Que nos habla de la política nacional y legislación. Mira, todo eso es, esto por lo menos nosotros nos instruye.
Democracia, lo dije hace un rato, delante de nuestro pueblo. Como dijo Lincoln, son definiciones sencillas. Ahora, lo difícil es llevarlo a la realidad. Aquí estamos llevándolo a la realidad. Gobierno del pueblo, por el pueblo y para el pueblo. A una sociedad de incluidos y de iguales, donde no haya exclusión, donde no haya miseria, donde reinen los valores humanos.
For some of his supporters, Chavez has not gone far enough. Familiar obstacles remain from the past, a stifling bureaucracy and widespread corruption. And although poverty has fallen dramatically in recent years, it's far from eradicated. When you drive in from the airport at Caracas, the one thing that shocks a first-time visitor are the barrios, the numbers of poor people. Why is it in Venezuela, which earns so many billions of dollars in oil money, that there still is this poverty in spite of all the changes you've made?
¿Que los pobres de Venezuela siguen siendo pobres? Sí. Yo siempre les digo, no queremos ser ricos. Nuestro objetivo no es la riqueza material. Es vivir dignamente, claro, salir de la pobreza y salir de la miseria sobre todo. Y vivir dignamente. Ese es el objetivo. No convertirnos en millonarios, el American Way of Life. No, esa es una imbecilidad. Eso te lo digo un poco porque el tema de la pobreza es un tema al que somos muy sensibles y es el que nos lleva la mayor parte de nuestra lucha de todos los días.
The daily struggle is made easier here. 10 years ago, this clinic would not have been dreamed of. Now, all over Venezuela, ordinary people have free health care, many seeing a doctor for the first time in their lives.
Haciendo un documental sobre Venezuela. Perdona la interrupción.
For the first time, children of the poorest have a full day at school and at least one hot meal a day. They're learning history and music and dance, often for the first time, and all of this is free. Under the Constitution, the poorest housewives are now paid as workers.
Desde el mismo nivel y vamos todos, nos preocupamos del compañero que...
There is now close to full literacy thanks to classes like this, catering to those like Mavis Mendez, aged 95, now reading and writing for the first time.
Significa mucho para nosotros. Yo lo único que lamento es que no esté más joven para seguir aprendiendo mucho más.
Porque nunca habíamos tenido un gobierno que se preocupara por la gente pobre, pues. O que lo enseñaran a leer, a escribir, nada de eso.
Pienso que nunca es tarde para superarse uno.
This is East Caracas, home to some of the wealthiest people on earth, and what they call here the middle class. I dropped in on John Vink, who agreed to show me around his grand house.
Wow, this is such a striking house.
Thank you.
My goodness.
Thank you.
Yes. You've been here long, have you?
Yes, I did.
This is the family home?
My family home. We grew up here.
John Vink has travelled the world, collecting objets d'art. Have you collected all the silverware and chandelier? Is that?
Yes, that one I brought from Spain.
Yeah.
This is a collection of Delft blue. That's why I have them over there so they don't break. This is from Peru. It's silver.
But you're thinking of leaving?
Yes. Yes.
Why is that?
Well, the situation of the country. It's getting day by day worse, and so.
Well, in what way? Can you?
In the political way.
Yeah.
We thought that this gentleman that's now in power, that he would change the whole situation, because it was a mess.
Yeah.
But now it's a whole mess.
John Vink's view is echoed by Venezuela's powerful media. Mostly privately owned, it combines banality with hardline anti-Chavez politics.
Al regreso, veremos otros peligros en las nuevas decisiones oficiales.
Que Venezuela se enrumba hacia un régimen muy similar al que impera en la isla de Cuba.
Etcétera. Pero a nivel del gobierno, que es el socialismo del siglo XXI, sencillamente el control total por parte del Estado de la sociedad, pues.
I mean, a number of journalists now say, well, there is censorship. They have been censored.
How can that be? They speak out every morning. They have their shows every day. They speak out, you know, constantly against the government every day. I mean, how can they say this?
I don't know if you have seen the programs that they have. Well, anybody that comes to Venezuela and spends 2 days looking at these channels knows that there's no censorship in Venezuela. You just have to sit down and see those opinion programs between 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock in the morning.
Hugo está evolucionando de fascista a nazi. ¿Qué es un nazi con diferencia a un fascista? Fundamentalmente que el nazi asesina.
I mean, I don't think in any part of the world you hear the things that they say about President Chavez, about his cabinet, his ministers, the governors, the policies, whatever. I mean, it's even obscene in some ways.
It seems to me that everything, including the weather, is being blamed on Mr. Chavez.
Nobody blames Mr. Chavez for the weather because it's the only thing left which still works, okay? All the other thing fell apart entirely. We're talking here 1914, Bolshevik revolution, Russia. This is what's taking place here. And if you go now to...
Wait a minute. Look, we're sitting here in your wonderful apartment overlooking Caracas.
In Venezuela, you say, es su casa. This is your home.
And if you're comparing this with the Bolshevik Revolution, there are no revolutionaries banging on your door, and none of your companies have been invaded. Your good life hasn't really changed. It hasn't changed, has it?
Yeah, but as I said before, it is now on a wait-and-see position. If I had come today on a 2-year contract, as I did in 1976, I would fulfill my contract, pack my luggage and go, because I don't see any more future.
His critics accuse Chavez of building another Cuba, of being another Castro. And although he recently announced temporary presidential powers that bypass Parliament, he maintains that his aim is solely to speed up reform. The irony is that, unlike Cuba, capitalism has never had it better here. At the Caracas Motor Show, Ferraris and other luxury cars are sold. Smart restaurants and private golf courses and weekends in Miami are booming. What this class has lost is political power over a huge oil economy.
I think Venezuela, because it is an oil economy, its middle and upper classes are very much biased towards the US and the American way of life. In a way, they think they are cosmopolitan. They don't feel that they are from this country or that country. They belong to the world. They belong to this kind of privileged people of the world.
Miami?
Miami, New York, Paris.
We adore Miami. Miami is our second home. We discovered Miami because Miami formerly was, it was a village. And we were so rich, we went to Miami and we bought houses, apartments, bungalows, boats, cars, everything we bought in Miami. We were the owners of Miami. And so we are very US-minded.
In the old Venezuela, the United States played the part of a mafia godfather. The deal was simple. For supplying endless cheap oil, the Venezuelan rich kept a large slice of the profits. The election of Hugo Chavez ended the deal.
Obviously, Venezuela is important because they're the third largest supplier of petroleum. I would say that Mr. Chavez, and the State Department may say this, probably doesn't have the interests of the United States at heart.
We have been concerned with some of the actions of Venezuelan President Chavez and his understanding of what a democratic system is all about.
Te digo que tratamos aquí de evitar el choque con el imperio, pero era inevitable. Yo fui a Casablanca, le di la mano a Clinton, hasta por teléfono. How are you, Mr. Clinton? How are you, Mr. Chávez? Es decir, nosotros aquí tratamos lo imposible. Hacer una revolución sin chocar con el imperio, imposible.
In Washington and Miami and the country clubs of Caracas, getting rid of Chavez became an obsession. In early 2002, secret plans were laid by the Venezuelan opposition, with the media leading the attack.
¿Usted cree que el presidente de la República está loco?
Va llegando el momento en que todos hablemos de la transición, sin Chávez, por supuesto.
Anti-Chavez protesters took to the streets, their anger inflamed by the media.
Nunca ha venido alguien tan feo y tan malo como esto.
Hugo Satanás Chávez Frías es el anticristo, es el demonio, es el diablo, es diantre, Lucifer.
Él es el único que sobra aquí.
The campaign to overthrow Chavez came to a head on April the 11th, 2002. An anti-Chavez protest march was called in the center of Caracas. What they didn't know was that there were two marches that day. The other one was led by Chavez supporters outside the presidential palace, known as Miraflores. The two rallies were supposed to be kept apart, but then an extraordinary series of events unfolded. Without warning, the opposition marchers were redirected to the presidential palace by one of the organizers.
Y él les dice, bueno, vamos hacia el palacio, vamos a desviar la marcha hacia el palacio de Miraflores.
People tried to stop the march from changing course, but the organizer was having none of it.
Le dice, no, en esta vaina mando yo y tú mandas en tu casa. Esto ya está programado y se va hacia Miraflores.
The opposition marchers were suddenly herded towards government supporters. As they approached the palace, shots rang out. They were being fired upon by snipers who shot them one by one, many with a bullet to the head. Soon afterwards, these pictures began appearing on anti-government TV, blaming the shooting on Chavez supporters on a city bridge.
Disparaban y apuntando y descargando las armas automáticas. Bueno, eso queda para la historia, pero gracias a Dios que hay estas evidencias. Y apuntando a la gente que pacíficamente estaba ahí abajo. Esto es una salvajada sin nombre. Eso es lo que llaman revolución.
However, as this camera angle reveals, there were no opposition marchers on the street below the bridge. What the TV pictures did not show was this. The people on the bridge are clearly trying to protect themselves, crouching down to avoid the bullets of unknown snipers above them and anti-Chavez police units below them. The people on the bridge were actually defending themselves.
Entonces era como una zona de combate, de control, y que ellos actuaron bien planificado, estaba súper planificado todo eso.
Within hours, these military chiefs appeared on television. They too blamed Chavez and his supporters for the killings.
Venezolanos, el presidente de la República ha traicionado la confianza de su pueblo. Está masacrando a personas inocentes con francotiradores. Para este momento van 6 muertos y decenas de heridos en Caracas. Esto no lo podemos permitir. No podemos aceptar un tirano en la República de Venezuela.
It was all a setup. The CNN correspondent in Caracas, Otto Neustald, later revealed that the generals had recorded their statement before the shooting.
El día 10 en la noche me llaman por teléfono y me dicen la marcha se va hacia el Palacio de Miraflores, va a haber unos muertos y aparecen 20 militares de alto rango pronunciándose en contra del gobierno de Chávez y pidiendo la renuncia al presidente. En esa prueba ya se habla de muertos cuando todavía no había un solo muerto en la calle y todo sigue como estaba programado.
Soon the presidential palace was surrounded by renegade army officers. Inside, Hugo Chavez was delivered an ultimatum: resign or be bombed. One of his cabinet ministers broke the news.
Políticamente, que quede en evidencia que esto fue un golpe de Estado. No es que él renunció, pero el presidente no renunció. Okay. No renunció y entonces va preso, porque es un golpe de Estado. Okay. ¿Qué? Que lo sepa el mundo. Que lo sepa el mundo.
The plotters announced that Chavez had resigned. He hadn't. He was kidnapped. The following morning, an unelected dictator was sworn in. He was a leading businessman called Pedro Carmona.
Eso hicieron una fiesta. Yo vi todo ese programa cuando ellos estaban en su programa de televisor. Mire, mijo, usted no tiene idea cómo lloré. Como que si se habían muerto mis hijos y mi madre, que son la cosa más sagrada que tengo. En verlos a ellos, como decían, bueno, amaneció de nuevo en Venezuela.
In one amazing proclamation, democracy was demolished, piece by piece.
Se suspende de sus cargos a los diputados principales y suplentes a la Asamblea Nacional. Se destituyen de sus cargos ilegítimamente ocupados al presidente y demás magistrados del Tribunal Supremo de Justicia. Así como al fiscal general de la República, al Contralor General de la República, al Defensor del Pueblo y a los miembros del Consejo Nacional Electoral.
Usted no tiene idea de lo que ese decreto nos hizo. Fue tan fuerte la cuestión, lo que nosotros vivimos en ese momento, porque ya no veíamos al pasado, a la represión, a la lucha por todo.
In the United States, the broadcast media carried the same pictures and the same story used to justify the coup.
The Bush administration made it clear it is happy with the change in leadership in the country responsible for 15% of America's oil imports. Anthony Mason has our report.
In the end, this is what triggered the overthrow of Hugo Chavez. Armed gangs loyal to the Venezuelan president firing on thousands of anti-government protesters. After 16 people were killed and hundreds wounded, last night soldiers surrounded the presidential palace.
At the White House, the spokesman of President Bush rubber-stamped the story.
Let me share with you the administration's thoughts about what's taking place in Venezuela. We know that the action encouraged by the Chavez government provoked this crisis. The Chavez government suppressed peaceful demonstrations, fired on unarmed, peaceful protesters, resulting in 10 killed and 100 wounded. That is what took place, and a transitional civilian government has been installed.
Back in Venezuela, 3 years of modest democratic reform had been overturned.
Afortunadamente tenemos una gran arma, que son los medios de comunicación. Si ustedes, el pueblo venezolano vio hoy, el ejército ni la Fuerza Armada hizo un disparo. Todo esto fue nuestras armas fueron los medios de comunicación.
The plotters and their friends had everything to celebrate. Or so they thought. The next morning, distraught people began phoning one of the independent radio stations still broadcasting.
Que tanto nos ha costado a los venezolanos. Me duele el alma por mi hijo, por mi hija, por los nietos, por toda esta juventud que va a quedar a la deriva de nuevo en las manos de los adecos y los copellanos corruptos que llevaron a este país al caos total, sin moral.
Se fue la esperanza de un pueblo, se fue la Constitución, se fue la democracia, se fue la esperanza de los niños.
But hope had not gone. The truth began to emerge that the resignation of Hugo Chavez had been faked. His wife, Maria, confirmed this in a call to the radio station.
Me dijo, aún después de muerto, quiero que logres que los organismos internacionales le hagan una prueba de grafología a esa firma, si es que existe, porque yo nunca firmé eso.
And the people in the barrios started to fight back. Down from the shanties they came to rescue their president.
The farther you take my rights away, the faster I will run. You can deny me, you can decide to turn your face away.
Esto es una dictadura, queremos a Chávez. Chávez es el presidente de Venezuela y el pueblo lo ama y lo vamos a defender.
No matter, 'cause there's something inside so strong. I know that I can make it, though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone. Oh no, something inside so strong.
Hundreds of thousands surrounded the palace, demanding the return of Chavez. Faced by such people power, the army turned.
Es que, desde el punto de vista militar, toda la Fuerza Armada, el 98% de la Fuerza Armada en todo el país, ha reafirmado, ha reiterado su lealtad a la Constitución vigente en Venezuela, a la Constitución de la República Bolivariana de Venezuela.
Roared on by huge crowds, the presidential guard who had gone into hiding retook the palace, and the plotters fled.
Los muchachos, los policías militares que estaban dentro de Miraflores, empezaron a levantar la bandera. Eso también nos dio más fuerza todavía a que no estábamos solos. Y ahí nos quedamos hasta que empezó a venir un helicóptero. Venía un helicóptero a medianoche que llegó a Miraflores y ahí sabíamos que venía Chávez. Eso fueron una hora de gloria para nosotros en vez que llegaba.
Just 48 hours after being kidnapped, Chavez was back in power.
Creo que la prueba suprema fue el golpe de Estado de abril 2002. Fui hecho prisionero, me llevaron, pensé que iba a morir. Ahora el pueblo venezolano, los pobres, sin armas, se fueron por cientos de miles a las calles, por millones, a pedir por mi vida y a pedir que vuelva Chávez. Entonces a mí no me queda más nada, después de eso sobre todo, que dedicarle todo lo que me quede de vida a ese pueblo, sobre todo a los más necesitados, sobre todo a los más pobres.
As ordinary Venezuelans celebrated the defense of their democracy, some of the leading plotters fled to Miami, and within days it was clear that Washington had cast its shadow over the failed coup. The Bush administration had gone along with the lies of the plotters.
We know that the action encouraged by the Chavez government provoked this crisis.
As these CIA documents show, it was fully warned and knew all about their conspiracy. Washington claims that it warned Chavez about the coup. This is denied by the Venezuelan government. Washington not only knew what was going on, it was backing and funding the coup indirectly. Documents recently released show that the Bush administration channeled millions of dollars to the Venezuelan opposition in the months leading up to the coup. The money was handed out by its principal aid agency, USAID, and an organization called the National Endowment for Democracy.
During the 6-month period prior to the coup in April 2002, the U.S. government invested more than $2 million into financing these organizations that they knew at least 6 months before were planning to overthrow the government.
You're essentially saying post hoc ergo propter hoc, because it happened after.
I don't think our viewers will understand that. If you could translate that.
Just because it happened after we provided support to these groups doesn't mean that it happened because we provided support to these groups. Yes. It is a logical fallacy. Right. We would be very open and transparent about what kind of support we provided through the National Endowment for Democracy and other institutions.
In fact, the National Endowment for Democracy handed out money to groups whose leaders were given cabinet positions in the short-lived illegal regime. An official in Washington explained that this was merely part of President Bush's freedom agenda.
But I want to just be very explicit about this, because there is, I think it's very important, and it's in the interest of fairness, to understand that the United States did not support that coup.
President Bush has promised to rid the world of evil and to lead the great mission to build free societies on every continent. To understand such an epic lie is to understand history, hidden history, suppressed history, history that explains why we in the West know a lot about the crimes of others, but almost nothing about our own. The missing word is empire. The existence of an American empire is rarely acknowledged, or it's smothered in displays of jingoism that celebrate war, and an arrogance that says no country has a right to go its own way unless that way coincides with the interests of the United States. For empires have nothing to do with freedom. They're vicious. They're about conquest and theft and control and secrets. Since 1945, the United States has attempted to overthrow 50 governments, many of them democracies. In the process, 30 countries have been attacked and bombed, causing the loss of countless lives. In my lifetime, the following countries in Latin America have been assaulted by the United States, directly and indirectly. Their governments replaced by dictators and other pro-Washington leaders. One of the first to be attacked was Guatemala, one of the small countries of Central America, known dismissively as banana republics.
This is Guatemala City as seen from the air. People who live in the city dress very much like the people in our own southern states. There are many churches, and people go to church regularly. They speak Spanish, of course, as most of them are of Spanish descent.
In fact, most of the people of Guatemala are not of Spanish descent. They're indigenous Mayan people and very poor. In the 1950s, 2% of the population of Guatemala controlled the natural wealth in collusion with giant US corporations like the United Fruit Company, which dominated banana growing. On the board of United Fruit was John Foster Dulles, who happened to be US Secretary of State. His brother Alan happened to run the CIA. Both were Christian fundamentalists who regarded any opposition as the work of communism and the devil. In 1950, this man, Jacobo Arbenz, became the first Guatemalan leader to be democratically elected by a majority of his people, who saw in him the hope of social justice. He was the Hugo Chavez of his day.
What was going on in Guatemala is that there was a democratically elected president in 1950, Jacobo Arbenz, who sought to institute a series of New Deal-style reforms in which the state had a greater role in both developing the economy and redistributing wealth. And the centerpiece of that was a land reform.
Arbenz was far from radical. His land reform policies were modest. But Washington was having none of it. Howard Hunt was then working for Alan Dulles' CIA.
So they said a decision has been made at the highest levels of our government to rid Guatemala of the Arbenz regime, and we would like you to participate in it. You will be the chief of propaganda and political action.
In Guatemala, what the CIA did was mobilize every facet of American power. It didn't just isolate Guatemala militarily and diplomatically, but it used the techniques of social psychology in the nearly year-long campaign, which created a sense of crisis in Guatemala.
What we wanted to do was have a terror campaign to terrify Arbenz particularly, terrify his troops, much as the German Stuka bombers terrified the population of Holland, Belgium, and Poland at the onset of World War II.
And that's what they did, so that the United States could control the economy of Guatemala, destroying the dreams of its people.
We sowed confusion through the countryside. And of course, by this time, we had aircraft flying over and dropping leaflets and doing a little harmless bombing.
A little harmless bombing and a CIA terror campaign cost thousands of lives. Arbenz, the Democrat now branded a communist, was humiliated, stripped naked, and photographed before being forced into exile. Richard Nixon, then Vice President of the United States, flew in to congratulate the new dictators.
That Guatemala is going to enter a new era in which there will be prosperity for the people, together with liberty for the people.
General Rios Montt was to be one of Washington's faces of liberty. During his time as president in the 1980s, thousands of people were murdered by death squads, most of them indigenous men, women, and children. His guns and helicopters came from the United States. President Reagan flew in to warmly endorse the general, whom he described as a man of great personal integrity.
In the CIA, we didn't give a hoot about democracy. I mean, it was fine if a government was elected and would cooperate with us, but if it didn't, then democracy didn't mean a thing to us. And I don't think it means a thing today.
The crushing of Guatemala was Washington's blueprint. 4 years later, Cuba, just 90 miles from Florida, threw down the first direct challenge, ending Cuba's humiliation as a North American colony a playpen for drug barons and the mafia.
Se han encontrado con que la revolución cubana sabe también pelear y ganar batallas en este campo.
Washington would never forgive Fidel Castro.
Under the government aegis, we had task forces that were striking at Cuba constantly. We were attempting to blow up power plants. We were attempting to ruin sugar mills. We were attempting to do all kinds of things during this period. This was a matter of American government policy. This wasn't the CIA.
Cuba's achievements in healthcare and education are widely respected. However, for not bowing to the greatest power on earth, the Cuban Revolution has paid a high price. A 45-year economic war waged by the United States and the loss of vital democratic freedoms.
How dare you, 90 miles from my country, last 45 years with a different form of government? How dare you haven't allowed American corporations to buy you out? How dare you continue this arrogance that says that you will never succumb to us? Don't you know who we are? Don't you know who these corporations are? Don't you know your life would be better if you could drink Coca-Cola every day?
What justified the attacks on Cuba and other Latin American countries was the so-called Red Menace.
We all know the atomic bomb is very dangerous. Since it may be used against us, we must get ready for it. First, you duck, and then you cover. And very tightly, you cover the back of your neck and your face.
Propaganda like this excused every American invasion, every toppling of a government, every assassination, every act of terrorism. The real threat was an orchestrated paranoia in the United States that became a super cult called anti-communism.
The true goal of the United States government is control. And they feel that if the United States did not control the governments of Latin America, then somebody else would. And the principle of government by the people, for the people, of the people, that is just silly.
This is Santiago, the capital of Chile. In 1973, the National Stadium was turned into a concentration camp as a military coup, backed by the United States, overthrew the democratically elected government of Salvador Allende. The leader of the coup was a fascist, General Augusto Pinochet, who rounded up Allende's supporters and brought them here. A young medical student, Roberto Navarrete, was one of them. These changing rooms were used as what when you were imprisoned here?
They were used as places where people were kept inside here, 50 or more. You can see that there was actually no room to move around here. Even all these places were full of people sleeping here, and there were no blankets or anything. Even some people actually slept here. There was very little room.
When they started to torture you all, what did they do to you then?
The techniques they used were beating you, especially in sort of places where it could become very painful, with a rubber truncheon, and especially the genitals and the soles of the feet, and the arms and various places.
Over 2,000 people were confined here, many of them never to be seen again. Victor Jara was Chile's greatest balladeer. His songs had celebrated the popular democracy of the government of Salvador Allende. He was taken to the stadium, where he was a source of strength for his fellow prisoners singing for them until soldiers beat him to the ground and smashed his hands. In his last poem, smuggled out of the stadium, he wrote, "What horror the face of fascism creates. They carry out their plans with knife-like precision. For them, blood equals medals. How hard it is to sing when I must sing of horror, in which silence and screams are the end of my song." After 2 days, they killed him.
How old were you?
I was 18.
18?
Yeah.
Oh. Does the fear that you experienced then, is that something that imprints itself on the rest of your life?
Yes, but we felt it was part of what we were trying to build in this country.
What they were trying to build was a just, equitable democracy that took control of Chile's economy from the United States and its proxies. For the invisible people of Latin America, Chile under Allende became an inspiration. In Washington, President Nixon secretly plotted to destroy the Chilean economy. "We're going to make the economy scream," said Nixon. In Santiago, General Pinochet, America's man, sent in his British-made bombers against the presidential palace. It was September the 11th, 1973, a date that held an infamy and irony 28 years later.
My wife and our children were at the house, and they had a marvelous view of these planes winging over and then dipping down and sending their bombs into the Moneda.
From inside the palace, Allende refused to leave, true to his promise not to surrender the government for which the ordinary people of Chile had voted. He broadcast this last message, then he shot himself.
Trabajadores de mi patria, tengo fe en Chile y su destino. Sigan ustedes sabiendo que mucho más temprano que tarde, de nuevo, abrirán las grandes alamedas por donde pase el hombre libre para construir una sociedad mejor. ¡Viva Chile! ¡Viva el pueblo! ¡Vivan los trabajadores!
With General Pinochet in power, Washington again denied it had destroyed another democracy.
We had no contact with any of the people that carried out the military coup, and therefore the coup that overthrew Allende was done without contact with the United States.
A very different story is told by these secret documents. In October 1970, the CIA cabled its man in Chile. It is firm and continuing policy that Allende be overthrown by a coup. When that happened 3 years later, a US official cabled back to Washington. Chile's coup d'etat was close to perfect.
Fascism is a word that's often misused, but you've experienced it, the real thing.
Yes, I think so. I think
When did you realize that you were ensnarled by fascism? When did it manifest itself?
I think it was evident from the very beginning, the ferocity, the sheer brute force that they use, the disregard for any kind of human dignity. I mean, their aim was really to make you into a thing, I think in order to protect themselves, because if they made you into a thing, then they didn't have to have human feelings towards you. They dehumanized you from the very beginning.
Once again, a Latin American elite was delighted to be rescued by fascism.
A country has to be well set, has to be well run, well worked, and see that everyone does the work. Because if they don't, and that country goes to the dogs. And this is the one man that's been able to hold them. I don't believe there's any torturing done in this country. Because you understand one thing. Why torture somebody when you can shoot them?
This is where they tortured and killed them. Villa Grimaldi was once a palatial home in a suburb of Santiago. Under Pinochet, it became a place of horror. Today, it's a memorial to its many victims. Sarah DeWitt, then a student activist, was a survivor. What was the date that you were arrested? Do you remember?
Oh, yes. I was picked up on the 3rd of April, 1975, 7 o'clock, on the dot.
So the junta had been in power for about 18 months.
Yes. So when I realized, someone had put what I imagine it was a gun, in my back and said to me, don't make any noise, don't try to run because we will shoot you. You are coming with us.
In a strange wooden tower like this, in spaces the size of a dog's kennel, people were tortured to death.
They took me to this room. They were punching me, hitting me, grabbing my nipples, telling me that I was a whore. So they asked me to take off my clothes, and they tied me up. And then they started giving me electricity. Now, the electricity was all the time inside my vagina, in my breast, and then it was going round, round my body, my legs, my arms. And when they did that, they would stop asking me questions, and then touching me everywhere, and shouting, abusing, and then they would go, they continue with electricity.
Dwayne Claridge was head of the CIA's Latin American division in the early 1980s.
Chile, the only reason it exists is because of Pinochet.
At a huge human price.
What human price? Give me a break.
The thousands who were disappeared and murdered?
Thousands? You count them. What thousands?
Well,
and
I've
don't
seen...
talk to me about truth commissions.
I've seen their names in the cemetery in Santiago.
Yeah,
you're saying they're
thousands.
fakes?
They aren't thousands.
Well...
There aren't thousands, sir.
There are thousands, each name documented by human rights organizations, some of them remembered here on the memorial wall at Villa Grimaldi. You have a couple of friends there, like Jacqueline?
Yes, I have friends, mainly people from my training. There is a girl there, Jacqueline Drugy, another one, Cecilia Labrin. She was pregnant, Cecilia, 3 months pregnant when they took her. They took another woman, Elizabeth Recas. She was 7 months pregnant. She went missing as well.
Doesn't bear thinking about, does it?
No, because sometimes, I think about what were they feeling, when they were being killed, and why, and well, sometimes I think too much and I start feeling, like the pain. What do you feel when you are being killed? And in such a way that I find frightening, really.
Yeah.
Because you wish, that you could have done something for them. Such the isolation, you must feel totally, I don't know, what do you think, really?
Alone.
Yeah, very, very much alone.
It was a period in which almost everybody in the present situation regards as a dark time, in which the CIA played a major role.
That's right. They played a major role in overthrowing, what's his name?
What's his name was Salvador Allende.
Yeah, fine. Okay.
He was democratically elected.
Right. Okay.
Is that okay to overthrow a democratically elected government? Is it okay?
It depends on what your national security interests are.
Are you denying that Pinochet caused huge suffering in that country.
I am huge, I don't buy. That he committed crimes, I agree.
But it's
Okay?
worth it.
Huh?
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Those crimes are worth it?
Yeah, sometimes, unfortunately, things have to be changed in a rather ugly way.
Levántate y mira la montaña, de donde viene el viento, el sol y el agua. Tú que manejas el curso de los ríos.
By the late 70s, most of Latin America was controlled by dictators, including those like Pinochet, who were openly fascist. All of them were backed, directly and indirectly, by the United States. They sent their henchmen to be trained here at the School of the Americas in Georgia. Officially, it was described as little more than a Boy Scout camp, teaching American values such as respect for human rights. In fact, from these manuals were taught interrogation and torture techniques. Major Joseph Blair taught at the School of the Americas in the early 1980s.
The doctrine that was taught was that if you want information, you use physical abuse, you use false imprisonment, you use threats to family members, you use virtually any method necessary to get what you want.
Torture?
And killing.
Kill them?
Killing. If there's someone you don't want, you kill them. If you can't get the information you want, if you can't get that person to shut up or stop what they're doing, you simply assassinate them, and you assassinate them with one of your death squads.
This is a death squad in action in El Salvador. Actually, it's the National Police, many of whom were trained at the School of the Americas. Here on the steps of San Salvador Cathedral, they're gunning down mourners attending the funeral of Archbishop Romero, who was murdered as he said Mass on March the 23rd, 1980. This man, Robert d'Aubusson, gave the order to kill the Archbishop. Major d'Aubusson was Washington's dirty secret in El Salvador. He was trained at the School of the Americas. According to the Truth Commission and a whole swathe of human...
Well, come on, John. This is where we're going. You're wasting my time. That's all bullshit. Those people all had agendas.
So it was bullshit that the Salvadorian military were murdering tens of thousands of people.
I bet you can't count more than 200 in the whole 10 or 12 years.
We can count 200 in this one village alone. They were mostly women and children, systematically murdered in just one day and night in December 1981 in the village of El Mazote. The killers belonged to a special battalion of the El Salvador Army, trained by the United States. There were few survivors.
Vio que las mujeres se abrazaban llorando y gritando que no las mataran. Yo por estar peleando por mis hijos, no los quería dar, no los quería dejar yo, decía que me moriría con ellos. Pero me los quitaron de mis brazos. Cuando se oía que estaban matando a los niños por la noche, se oían los gritos de los niños y les gritaban a sus mamás y a sus papás.
You're taking the stuff from these propaganda mills. And I'm not interested.
What are the propaganda mills?
All these things, this truth thing and all that, they're nothing but propaganda mills.
Do you really think they're...
I didn't know so.
Are they all conning us, lying us? Yeah, Amnesty International?
Amnesty International is right in the middle of it.
During the 1980s, the years of Ronald Reagan in the White House, a trail of carnage and grief was blazed across Central America. I reported America's war against Nicaragua, which had the temerity to overthrow a Washington-backed dictator, Somoza. The CIA attacked Nicaragua with death squads known as the Contra. Why did Washington attack such tiny countries? Because the weaker they are, the greater the threat. People who can free themselves against all the odds are sure to inspire others. What right have you, when I mean you, the CIA, the United States government, or any foreign power, what right do you have to do what you do in other countries? What
National
right?
security interests.
But that's a divine right, isn't it? Because the people that you do it to have no say in this.
Yeah, well, that's just tough. We are going to protect ourselves, and we're going to go on protecting ourselves because we end up protecting all of you. And let's not forget that.
Right, no, I won't.
We'll intervene whenever we decide it's in our national security interest to intervene. And if you don't like it, lump it. Get used to it, world. We're not going to put up with nonsense. And if our interests are threatened, we're going to do it.
In Guatemala, the United Nations described the Washington-backed campaign against the Mayan people as genocide. An American Roman Catholic nun, Sister Diana Ortiz, experienced this at first hand as a missionary. In 1989, after speaking out about the brutal treatment of the indigenous people, she was kidnapped.
In 1989, November 2nd, I was abducted and I was put in a police car, blindfolded, and taken to a military installation in Guatemala City, known as the Polytechnica, which still exists today. I was taken to a basement, and I still remember to this day, upon entering the building, the clandestine prison, hearing the screams of people being tortured. Can we stop?
For 24 hours, she was tortured and gang raped. During her ordeal, she identified the leader of the gang as a fellow citizen of the United States.
I came out a totally different person, but also with new eyes and more attuned to the hurting, the brokenness, the oppression, the deceit of my government. I've heard people say that what happened in Abu Ghraib is an isolated incident. And I have to just shake my head and say, are we on the same planet? Aren't you aware of our history? Isn't history taught in the classroom about the role of the US government in human rights violations?
By the late 1980s, Washington's policy changed. Dictators like Pinochet were seen as an unnecessary embarrassment. A new and innovative way of controlling nations was launched.
Good morning and welcome. It's good to have you all here to help celebrate the launching of a program with a vision and a noble purpose. The National Endowment for Democracy is, just as we've been told, more than bipartisan. The establishment of the National Endowment goes right to the heart of America's faith in democratic ideals and institutions. It offers hope to people everywhere.
Like any new brand, it had a snappy name: democracy. It was largely fake, an illusion of marketing and spin. This brand of democracy meant that whoever you voted for, the policies would be broadly the same, and your country's economy would be in step with the United States. Washington would be your closest friend, or else. In the 1990s, these democracies in name replaced dictatorships in Latin America, with Chile providing the model. This is the commercial center of Santiago, Chile. On the surface today, everything seems normal, modern, prosperous. To the Bush administration, Chile is the very model of economic success. A laboratory experiment, according to the magazine Business Week. Much of life has been privatized, there are now billionaires, and the rich are getting richer.
Pinochet fixed the country.
Who says? The United States says.
No. The World Bank says, the Inter-American Bank says, everybody says it. He brought about an economic miracle in Chile. And I'm not saying he had the brains for it, but he had the brains to hire all these people, Chileans, who had studied at the University of Chicago, who knew something about real economics.
Real economics were advocated by Milton Friedman, an extreme right-wing economist at the University of Chicago. Friedman was invited to perform his laboratory experiment on the economic life of Chile. The families of the tortured and disappeared were silent witnesses. Without irony, he called his experiment shock treatment.
Please be seated. Well, thank you all very much. It's an honor for me to be here to pay tribute to a hero of freedom, Milton Friedman. He has used a brilliant mind to advance a moral vision. We have seen Milton Friedman's ideas at work in Chile, where a group of economists called the Chicago Boys brought inflation under control and laid the groundwork for economic success.
This is the other side of the economic miracle. Chile today is a deeply unequal society. This shanty town is just minutes from Santiago's smart hotels.
Hay tantos cesantes, hay miles de cesantes, los jóvenes, y el que trabaja no alcanza para nada. ¿Y con qué paga la luz? ¿Con qué paga el agua? Hay que comprar el gas, todas las cosas que hay que comprar. Diariamente la mamá dice, ¿qué hago para la comida de los niños? ¿De dónde saco dinero?
We found this couple living and freezing in the shantytown. They're homeless and have a week-old baby.
Si usted puede describir un poco cómo es vivir en estas condiciones.
Para empezar, el frío en la noche.
Difícil.
El frío en la noche es súper difícil. Por mi guagua tuvimos que prender la cocina.
¿Cuánta gente en Chile vive de esta manera?
En realidad,
yo creo que mucha gente.
Y en peores condiciones que nosotros. Pero hay gente que no simplemente no recibe ayuda porque no nomás, porque no hay ayudas para...
¿A dónde se van a ir entonces?
A la calle. Vamos a dormir en la calle otra vez. Pues,
ya hemos dormido en la calle.
En el extranjero, en Europa y en Estados Unidos y en otros lugares, se dice que Chile tiene una reputación como un país rico, acomodado.
Sí.
¿Qué es lo que ustedes dicen
Eso,
a eso?
Sí,
eso,
yo creo
eso
que
puede
sí.
ser, es verdad, pero
Es
para
verdad,
la gente
pero
que...
eso para la gente que
esa-
tiene, no para nosotros.
Chile is a democracy now, in theory. A complicated voting system splits the vote and discourages real reform. It's a product of General Pinochet, based on a constitution that's also a product of Pinochet. The general may be dead, but the power of the military remains. It's all very modern, the media is safe, and many believe it's wise to be silent, like the graves of their forgotten compatriots. It's Washington's ideal democracy.
La dictadura tuvo un gran éxito en Chile desde el punto de vista de que estableció un modelo político, económico y social que todavía permanece hasta el día de hoy, porque en esencia no se ha cambiado la constitución que impuso la dictadura en 1980.
No, nosotros no perseguimos democracia porque esa palabra está tan manoseada que no se entiende. Aquí hay una persecución contra los pobres, y no es en Chile, en toda América Latina está pasando eso. Yo creo que la gente que estudia sabe que ese punto de seguir así va a reventar en alguna cosa eso. Yo pienso que el pueblo va a despertar y va a decir, basta, ¿hasta cuándo?
This is Bolivia, another laboratory experiment. The majority of the population of this spectacular, brutalized country high in the Andes have also been invisible until recently. The indigenous people, the Aymara and Quechua, carry memories of a culture and civilization and wealth long before the Spanish arrived 500 years ago. They remember how a single hill of silver underwrote the entire Spanish Empire, while they became the poorest. This is the National Congress of Bolivia. Until recently, the faces here were almost all white, the descendants of a tiny Spanish elite which plundered the nation's riches and reduced the indigenous majority to serfdom. It was a pattern of control repeated all over Latin America. The pattern has been broken in Bolivia with the rise of social justice movements of a kind never seen before, and whose democratic home is not Westminster or Washington or any other so-called model, but in the streets, the mines, the barrios, the fields. Governments that defy this popular power, this true democracy, do so at their own peril. This is El Alto, the highest city on earth, and perhaps the poorest. The occupants of this cemetery on the roof of the world are mainly children. Protected, they say, by the sacred mountain Illimani, El Alto overlooks Bolivia's capital, La Paz. Juan Delfin, a priest and a taxi driver, has lived here for most of his life.
Esta es una zona Villa Ingenio, cementerio general de Villa Ingenio, de la zona norte de la ciudad del Alto. Y aquí hay una triste amargura. Hay de todo tipo que están nuestros hermanos, nuestros niños, nuestras hijas, nuestros abuelos y abuelas muertos que están simplemente enterrados. Vemos lo que está, ¿no? Hay incluso una familia, se envenenó toda la familia por falta de trabajo, por falta de economía. Primero el esposo lo envenenó a su esposa, a sus hijos, y él también se envenenó. Hay casos que hemos visto así.
When I first came to Bolivia in the 1960s, El Alto barely existed. The million people living here are peasants run off their land and miners made redundant by policies similar to those imposed in Chile. Infrastructure that didn't make a quick buck was privatized. The message was clear: sell it, strip it, or scrap it. The indigenous people were scrapped.
¿Por qué? Nos preguntamos. Si yo era rico, si soy boliviano rico y nacido, pero ¿por qué estoy pidiendo la limosna? ¿Por qué? Si teníamos mar por un lado, ¿no? Si teníamos plata, oro, todo teníamos. Entonces, ¿por qué seguimos sufriendo?
And yet the people here have held together. Their sense of identity, their community. In the year 2000, the people of Bolivia's second city, Cochabamba, fought an epic struggle to win back their most basic resource, water, from a foreign consortium dominated by the American corporation Bechtel. And they won. Three years later, in 2003, Bolivia's power brokers were about to get another shock. This is Gonzalo Sanchez de Lozada. Known as Goni, he was brought up in Washington. His English is better than his Spanish. They knew him here as El Gringo.
Yo lo veía un gordo sentado en una silla de ruedas, que es de oro, ¿no? Y soberbio. Entonces yo pienso que él era soberbio, tal vez por el poder que tenía, ¿no? Que era su riqueza.
When Goni was elected president of Bolivia in 2003, he backed a law that amounted to a fire sale of the country's resources. Almost everything was up for grabs, including Latin America's second biggest gas reserves.
De un de repente sabemos que tenemos gas y se está vendiendo al otro extranjero y tiene que ir a Estados Unidos, tan grandes, y mientras yo me estoy cocinando con leña. Entonces empieza la guerra desde ahí. Y bloqueamos, manifestamos y paro hasta que nos responda.
The people of El Alto fought back, blocking the roads leading into La Paz.
Se bloquee, que no se deje, que no vuele una mosca, decían, ¿no? La gente ya salía a bloquear y no dejamos pasar las movilidades, ¿no? Pero eso se ha ido ya, ¿cómo se dice? Intensificando.
Goni's response was the traditional Latin American way. He sent in the army to crush dissent. Scores were shot dead. Many were brought to Juan Delfin's church.
Las mesas han hecho así, y estaba aquí las mesas, y estaba aquí los cadáveres estaban aquí, entonces, y aquí es lo que incluso a los muertos hasta con clavos le sacaron las balas las sacaron, le tiraron a otro lado, y era triste el ver aquí. Todo está miseria. Todo eso era lleno aquí, puros doctores estaba lleno, estaba aquí, ninguna gente, pero el olor era harto. Y como quedaron huérfanos los guaguas también. Lloraban ahí, gritaban ahí, papá, papá, papá.
Tens of thousands of people poured down into La Paz, like the people of Venezuela's barrios demanding the return of their president. They demanded their country back. If the rich and powerful of Latin America had a nightmare, this was it.
De pronto se sabía que el GON iba a renunciar. Peor con eso. Hemos agarrado como si fuera algo, un ánimo para que él se vaya. La meta era eso, para sacarlo a él. Eso era la meta.
Goni fled to the United States and is today living in a smart suburb of Washington. In October 2004, the Bolivian Congress ordered his arrest on charges of bloody massacre. George Bush has said, governments that harbour terrorists are as guilty as they are.
Pero toda esta oscuridad estamos así. El oscuro que nos ve. Toda la oscuridad.
This extraordinary mural was painted by Juan Delfin. It's a cry of freedom from an entire continent.
Todos mataron, pero nosotros defendemos este pueblo aymara con el pututo que defendemos nosotros, con la expresión de la voz, con el puño que tenemos y que manejamos nuestra bandera, que es nuestra huipala, la bandera, contra Estados Unidos. Este es Estados Unidos, la bandera de Estados Unidos. Contra eso estamos nosotros, porque ellos nos han hecho esto así. Es puño muy importante. Por eso cuando juramos, sí, esto es nuestro, y estamos así.
In 2005, the people of Bolivia took an historic step. For the first time ever, an indigenous person was voted president in a landslide. Like Chavez in Venezuela, Evo Morales offered a new democracy and a new beginning.
Quisiéramos que todos empecemos a trabajar. Se acabó las fiestas, se acabó la luna de miel, ahora es trabajo permanente para cambiar nuestra Bolivia.
Sin duda que está creciendo, se está propagando por todo el continente de América Latina, el Caribe, pero sobre todo en Sudamérica. Yo me la paso recorriendo esta América Latina desde Buenos Aires hasta Brasilia, Montevideo, La Paz, y por todos lados hay un fervor desatado, hay un fervor.
In Latin America, there's now a host of leaders offering new beginnings. Of course, history is crowded with heroes who offer new beginnings. The respectability of great power and its games and deals and plunder always beckon. If these new leaders succumb, their biggest threat may not be from Washington, but from the people on the hillsides.
I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. 'Cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will.
El futuro es para mis hijos, para nuestros jóvenes. Y esa lucha no es solamente de Chávez, esa lucha es nuestra. Eso que Chávez abrió, que reconoció nuestras luchas y que nosotros estamos dando con él, lo vamos a seguir dando. O sea, la lucha del imperio no es con Chávez, es con nosotros.
Llegó la hora del gran despertar. Y creo que Víctor Hugo, terminemos por ahí, yo soy muy victorhuguiano. Víctor Hugo escribió aquello: no hay nada tan poderoso como la idea cuya época ha llegado. El imperio americano llegó a su fin y debe imponerse en el mundo, bueno, el imperio de la ley, de la igualdad, de la justicia, de la fraternidad. Muchas gracias, John.
Perfecto.
I want
Muchas
to
gracias.
see you again.
What happened here at the National Stadium in Santiago, Chile, has a special place in the struggle for freedom and democracy throughout Latin America and the world. The vow is never again, and yet it has happened again at Guantanamo Bay and all the other secret places where imperial power, regardless of its democratic pretensions, hides and tortures its perceived enemies. The questions raised in this film are urgent. Are the lives and dreams of the ordinary people of Chile, like the people of Venezuela, like the people of Bolivia, like the people of Nicaragua, like the people of Vietnam and Iraq and Iran and Palestine, expendable, worth only a few seconds on the news if they're lucky? The answer is no. And those who see the world through the eyes of the powerful should be warned. People are rising from the tyranny and oblivion to which we in the West have consigned them. Indeed, their resistance is well underway, as this film has shown. I would say it never stopped and is unbeatable.
I go to the movie and I go downtown. Somebody keep telling me don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Then I go to my brother and I say, brother, help me please. But he winds up knocking me back down on my knees. Lord, there've been times that I thought I couldn't last for long, but now I think I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gon' come.